and welcome to another After Dark. We've got some very nice people for you to meet tonight. First couple of guys out of INXS. We have with us Michael Hutchins and Kirk Pengilly. And I hope I said that correctly, because they'll be in here shortly to knock me out if I didn't. Sammy Collins from 2JJJ, started off with 2JJ, is now with a Triple J. She'll be in a little later to talk to us. And a fella that's on his way at the moment, and we hope he gets here in time, the English, they used to call him a punk poet, and lately he's the bard of somewhere or other, a guy called John Cooper Clarke, lovely guy. We'll show you a single later on that you've probably never seen anything like it in your life. Plus we've got Flash Gordon. He's up there in Mars, I think, tonight. He's been up there in Mars for quite some time. And a lot of good clips too. What we're going to do is start with The Church, A Different Man, the current single, and then we'll have Tommy Boyce, Bobby Hart, You're Still My Favourite Girlfriend, Alice Long. But first, The Church. With your best shot, Pat Benatar from INXS. We have Michael and we have Kirk. Thanks very much. I got Pengilly right, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
For the first time in my life. Because they usually say, oh, Pengelly's coming out, you know? And I thought, hang on, not with that spelling.
No way.
I thought I'd check it out. I wanted to ask you, right from the beginning, the start of 1982 was very quiet. You were off the road and all that. Now you've ended on a high note with a hit single and a hit album. What were you actually doing in that early part of 82? Why were you off the road?
We originally planned not to go off the road to actually do a tour overseas and maybe even an album or something, but we took the time off because we couldn't play because we didn't have a record company, because we left our record company. So it's something as boring as that.
Well, explain what happened there with the record.
Well, we just wanted a different contract. I guess.
Time to move on.
More money.
Yeah,
better deal or whatever.
Better deal.
Yeah.
more license to do what we want to do, I guess. And,
We're actually waiting for our gold records from RCA, and they still haven't showed up.
Sounds, didn't you?
Yeah.
They never ever.
They still haven't showed up.
This is a sore point.
Anyway, moving away from that, but still, while you're off the road, I read somewhere that you said, well, it gave us time to get our heads into gear and to write and all that. Were you actually thinking of maybe, after 3 years of non-stop work, throwing it all away at that stage?
No.
No?
Well, yes, we all. No. No, actually, funnily enough, because we had that time off, it let us reassess a lot of things and just, discuss a lot of things that you don't really have time to discuss while you're out on the road and recording and just, it also got us off the road live,
Yeah.
And you've got to have a dynamic in your own life to have a dynamic on stage, so I think, so.
Gave us a whole new energy.
Yeah, it was a bit of a new lease of life.
New surge.
It really is a thing that you really, in this country, can't stay on the road 12 months a year, can you? And hope to continue improving, because people, well, you're overexposed, virtually, aren't you?
It depends. If you can afford to travel interstate all the time, like even as far as Perth and, wherever, you can do it. But, I mean, it's so time-consuming and so draining if you're just consistently on the road, and you've got to have time to rehearse. And
I think we're fairly particular now, actually, with when and where we play. You have to be.
Did you write a lot of the stuff that's on this new album at that stage of the year?
Well, there was half of us in England writing, Kirk and Andrew and myself, and the rest of the band were in Australia writing. So when we got back together again, it's the first time we've done where just about everybody's contributed. Something. Johnny and Tim wrote a song. Gary didn't.
It was funny, actually, because when we were in London, the other guys were sort of writing, and the main writing up until this album had really been Andrew and Michael, the keyboard player. And we're talking to our manager in Australia, and he's saying, gee, the guys over here are getting some really hot songs together, and we're going, and here we are having great time in London. Whoops.
So pull the rabbit out of the hat.
I got stuck into writing over there.
How would you describe this album, right? This current album? What would you call it? A love album? An album full of love songs?
I think it's a much more complete album from, track one, side one to last track on side two. By the time you've gone through the whole album like that, you've got a much more balanced collection of songs. But the lyrics have changed a bit, and they're much more emotionally orientated, I guess.
Now, I read somewhere else that you had said that you write what's going on around, and you obviously had a bad year or a few months prior to then, or turmoil in your private life. Is that correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Well, I usually can only write about what seems to apply to myself or my surroundings or my friends or whatever, and so it must be that way. I'll have to explain it that way anyway.
Where did Jan's song come from? I'll ask you, Kurt.
Well, ask Michael. No.
You might be a zinger to upset him, you know?
Yeah.
Is that a past...
Well, it's Andrew. We had met somebody in Melbourne called Jane who used to come down to where we were staying, and we'd talk for hours on end about her plight, you know. She's quite young and living out in the suburbs in Frankston. And from there, I think Andrew started a few lines, and then he showed it to me, and I added a few lines.
It was a culmination
of
you two,
wasn't it? It was a bit of license. It's about Jan, that actual girl. So,
so it wasn't a
true
love
life
affair.
No. It's more of a song about you know, the plight of somebody trying to either convince what's around, you know, people around her, etc., to change or leave, and she ends up sort of leaving and saying, well, I can't do anything here, so she goes on.
Now, whereabouts, like when you first formed the group 4 years ago, was it North Side that you all lived?
Yeah.
That's strange now, because you've got a whole stack of bands that have made a name for themselves over the last year or two from the North Side, but if you go back 7 or 8 years, they were all coming out of the West, the Westies, you know? What do you think has changed that? Why are North Shore kids now getting into forming groups and all that?
I'm trying to think of some other North Shore bands.
We had some of the boys on from Moving Pictures recently.
Yeah,
they're from over there. Midnight Oil and so on and so on. You know,
I don't,
quite a lot of them around.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any, you know, sort of deep reason for areas and that. I think it must be just what's happened. You know.
I just wondered why the swing was. It
could be something to do with
you're right. Actually, a lot of people have moved from the city out to that way because it's just a change, I guess. You know, I think that bunches of people always keep moving.
And so it's just where the population happens to be.
I've moved over to the other side now, so Kirk's off and crossed over.
Heading west again, you are. Is the band more disciplined these days than it was in the early days? I read that somewhere too. Or are you just going along as you were?
No, well, I think, you know, Kirk and Andrew have always had musically very strong in their ideas, and we're quite disciplined, and then like the rhythm section has probably just come to a point now where it is as tight as it relatively should be, you know, because the guys play too much, you know. Like you've got to pull them back, because it's too easy for them to, you know.
So you're really
that sort of thing where you're just young and you're learning and you're thinking, look, I can play this. But now it's got the point where, well, we all know we can play that, but let's pull back and make a song rather than some big wank for everybody else to play along with.
What about with the overseas, the groups, Aussie groups working overseas now, Chisel, The Church, Oils, etc., Ends, Men at Work? Does that bother you that you haven't yet got overseas?
No, not at all. I mean, I figure that the longer it takes, the better, because the more, I guess, the more experienced you become, the more professional, the more aware. You know, I think in some ways the longer it takes, the better, just because you'll be able to handle that situation so much easier.
Right. So next year's plans for overseas?
Yeah, well, you'll see. If we go, we're going to leave that night. You know what I mean?
You're just going to walk out.
You'll read about it. Yeah, just going to walk out.
But I'm going to write about it. So tell me a couple of days in advance.
Yeah, we'll ring you up that week.
Thank you, because if I read about it somewhere else, I lose my job. Let's have a look at Don't Change, the current single for INXS, and then we'll have a song from Missing Persons. We'll be back to talk with a whole stack of lovely people, including the two guys, very shortly. That's not the way you normally see Joan and Louie, I tell you. Sammy Collins from 2 Triple J.
Very good, Don.
Now, you started with them when they were Double J. How did you first get onto radio?
I was working in a record company as I was a young girl, and I just applied.
Still are.
Yeah, oh well, so they say. Timing. Right place, right time. 1975 could start right then.
Yeah.
And musical background, basically.
Well, it's
So
always
away.
that way in showbiz, isn't it? Right place, right time.
Absolutely.
Now, you didn't go straight on air, did you?
No, no, no. Oh, no.
So explain what you were doing for quite some time.
Well, firstly I started programming music, and then working with various announcers, all the old and goldens.
Yeah.
Ivan Walker, Chris Winter, Georgie Wayne, Matt Cocker, not to name drop, but...
Groover Wayne.
Yes, Groover.
Old and
Oh
goldens.
dear, he'll never live that down.
No.
And then moved into more serious technical work. And it wasn't until about 1980 I was lured onto the radio, and then I did about 18 months of that.
Now, you're also working with that concert thing where you did the concerts. What was it called? Tuesday Night Live.
Well, aside from the Tuesday nights, we were doing concerts from about the first 6 months of Double J's inception. And Ron Moss, who was one of the coordinators, then left, and nobody else seemed to be able to take it upon themselves or wanted to.
Right.
So then we began on that Tuesday night series of the ABC studio concerts, as well as all the outdoor ones, and yes, I booked those.
Name some of those people that came in and actually did those concerts. Did INXS ever do it?
They have done some.
But you know each other, don't you? That's why I didn't do the introduction.
Pleased to meet you.
For the 19th time.
Yeah.
Name some of them, Bob.
Gee, Midnight Oil,
Yeah.
in their very early days, the Bruce Landers, who are now the Reels.
Right.
Lots of old names, Four Day Riders. Oh, gee, I should have done my
Is
research.
there one that stands out in your mind as being the concert that you actually put down and went to air with?
Oh, Donnie, there are several millions. We did a very good New Year's Eve concert in about 1977 with Split Ends,
Right.
Midnight Oil, The Angels. It was a fairly hefty lineup. And there have been so many, really...
Now, you went on to air. You're all right. You went on to the air and lasted for X amount of months and then got back off it again. Didn't you like it?
Yes, I did like it, but I think you have to be a fairly strong sort of personality, and I was one of the babies, and I decided that it was just a good time for revision, and I wanted to do more behind the scenes work, really.
Yeah.
My personality is more suited towards that sort of thing.
Now, 2 Double and now Triple J has always been a station that got behind local product, and they play, you know, people that haven't got singles out as long as they've got a tape and that sort of thing. How would someone at home, if they've got a good band and a good tape of their group, get to talk to you and maybe get their tape a little bit of airing on the station?
Well, for many years we've been talking about playing demos, and we never had any cassette facilities at the radio station, and now we have a demo tape program on Sunday nights that runs for half an hour, and it deals with about 7 or 8 new, unknown, unrecorded bands, and that's how it's done now. It has a forum, it has a...
Well, who
an
do they
outlet.
contact?
Virginia, Moncrief, or Peter Doyle.
Right.
And they work at the radio station. They've been there for a little while, or anyone.
At the station would be able to show them through. Now, who then, you must, if you've got a show like that going, you must get hundreds of tapes a week. Well, dozens.
Yes.
How do you go about selecting which ones you'll give airing to? Who's in charge of that?
We're not very discriminatory. They're usually all really good,
Yeah.
if not good, and they practically all get, bar a few cook ones, they all
It's
get
got to
an
be the
airing.
odd day.
They all get an airing.
Right.
They're all played.
So if you're sitting at home and you have a band and you've got a nice tape, get onto it.
Send it on in.
Triple J.
Yeah.
The Triple J is FM in Sydney, but it's AM in other places. Tell us about that.
Canberra and Newcastle, we've been simulcasting, I've got it on the brain now. We've been going to for about the last 2 years, and we've just recently started to broadcast after midnight to Wollongong.
Right. So is this the only FM channel in the country that does
I
that?
believe so, yes.
Sends out AM as well?
That's right.
Do you think that there'll come a day when the stations will all be AM FM or FM AM?
Well, there are some sort of broadcasting laws that don't allow FM stations to be AM, although we were the only radio station that simulcasted AM and FM at the same time in the latter part of 1980. But I hope so. I really would hate to see the disappearance of AM radio.
The double up would cater for everyone and would be great.
When we were AM, we went, because of the way radio waves are, we went we reached Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, as far across to New Zealand and northern Queensland.
Right.
When we became FM, your range is limited.
Okay, now let's talk about Sydney's ratings. How do the ratings now compare when you're FM with what you were getting as an AM station in Sydney?
Well, they're lower proportionately because,
I thought they might have gone up a little.
Well, because you're dealing with a smaller share of the market.
Yeah.
And we are lower now than we were, but proportionately we're probably quite equal to the way we were.
And you've changed your format a little, haven't you? There's more top 40 sneaking in there.
It's really difficult to try and balance the inconsistency with the consistency.
Right.
And we had a lot of problems with alienation as far as the music we were playing was concerned, and there was a great demand for us to move further into more commercial music that was more accessible. There's no reason, just because we're a non-commercial radio station, that we should strictly deny access to those kinds of music.
Sure.
Because a lot of them are quite quality.
Also might help in the ratings. How many people work at Triple J these days?
Oh, roughly about 30. That includes a news team and producers and announcers and freelancers.
So would that make it the smallest
operation
of any radio station?
I'm really not sure about the others, but I think so, yes.
And would that then make you, as an ABC station, you're running at lower costs and actually covering your costs? Would that make, lost the word?
We scrape it in.
More efficient. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah?
We are, blow trumpet.
Yeah, that's all right.
The most cost-effective department of the ABC. Which, well, yeah.
Which is good, isn't it?
Think about it for a moment.
Yeah, sorry.
That's quite all right, the ABC. But, yes, and we have had a budget under threat ever since we were set up under the Labor government, and 6 months into 1975 we came under government pressure, and we've had our budget every year decreased.
Oh.
And we just had another 20,000 taken off.
Does that mean that you guys just have to work a little harder than anyone else in other radio stations? All right, let's play one of the songs that obviously your station has given plenty of airing to. Sacred Cowboys. Nothing grows in Texas unless it's working to the budget. John Clark is now with us. He, in the past, has worked with that fellow, Elvis Costello. Welcome, John. You know the guys. You met them in Adelaide.
Yeah,
you know our little Sammy there. Worked with the radio station. Just have a look at this single. I Married a Monster from Outer Space. Actually, you gave this to us a couple of years ago in England. That's how it went out over there, is it?
That's right, yeah.
How did it sell in England?
Very well.
I always thought
It was only actually the first 25,000 that was that shape. The rest of them were like plain old black vinyl circular.
Apparently here there's...
The next one's going to be boomerang shaped, so you
go like a rocket here, but it might come back. Sammy tells me this is one of only 3 copies of this in the country.
Really?
So there could be a good market.
Yeah, right.
Make another 25,000.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You have been described, at the time we met, the punk new wave thing was on, and you were the punk poet. That was the description going around. People hate descriptions, I know, but there's the Bard of Salford now. How would you describe yourself? Can you?
I prefer punk poet myself.
Yeah?
It's a bit more alliterative, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Bard of Salford's a bit parochial, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it's starting to get into the other area. The International Poetry Olympics. Where were they held, and when did that happen? You took part in that.
The first one was held. In fact, the only one that I was involved with was held at Westminster Abbey. Good venue for a poetry gig, I always thought. You know, it's full of it's really kind of moody place. You know, it's full of flowers and, you know, rococo touches. You know, angels with no noses, statues of dead poets. It's where the Queen gets married, for Christ's sake. You know.
And so, when did this take place, and how many poets lined up for the Olympics?
There was about a dozen, I think, on that particular occasion. There's myself, Linton Kwesi Johnson, and then the establishment.
Linton was coming out here, wasn't it? It was rumoured that he'd come with you, but now he's not here.
I don't think Linton approves of the all-white ambience of this place, actually. I think you have a bit of trouble getting him out here. I can relate to that as well.
What sort of poetry is Linton? He is mostly political stuff.
Oh, it's crucial, man, crucial.
Crucial. I love that. Can you remember the first time that you walked onto a stage and did your poetry at a rock sort of venue, you know, with rock bands?
Yeah, it was a discotheque in a place called Openshaw, which is a kind of very industrialised part of Manchester. I was stabbed in the leg.
It wasn't funny at the time.
Not at the time, right.
But you, last time when I met you, you had a broken arm, you'd fallen off the stage or been pushed. Have you had many accidents like that?
It's a wonder I'm still here, you know, it's, yeah.
What sort of other things have happened to you?
I fell out of a train once, broke my ankle.
Were you reciting at the time?
No, I was keeping quiet at the time.
Anything else?
What, injury-wise?
Yeah.
I got knocked off a motorbike once, you know.
Not while you were...
I'll do anything to be compared to Bob Dylan.
You actually told me you hated that when we were at the time, right? And that was a comparison that was happening a lot.
Yeah.
When you worked that first time with a band, did you feel that like this was breaking new ground? Because I've not...
Oh, yeah, sure, but I mean, you know, it's sort of... there was nobody else doing it, you know.
And were you nervy at the time, or did you just say, well, I'm going to get up here and do it?
Well, no, I mean, people used to ask me, you know, about the, you know, aren't you scared reading poetry to punk rockers and that? But like I say, it's not as bad as the nightclub circuit, you know, which is what I was working on in the period immediately before the punk rock, in the period immediately before I invented punk poetry.
Right, right. So in nightclub circuit, who would you be performing in front of? Not audience-wise, but I mean, who were you supporting there? What sort of acts?
Ventriloquists, strippers, comedians, fire eaters.
That's one hell of a show. Have you ever thought of doing it again?
Oh, no, never again. It's a really miserable circuit, that, you know. I mean, you wouldn't believe the earache you had to go through just to get your money, you know. I mean, it's... Because all these clubs, you know, I mean, and what used to be called the Northern Club Circuit, every one of them was run by a gangster, you know, and you'd have to face down about 15 gorillas just to get your 30 quid, you know.
Now, Australian...
I took to walking around with a big geezer in there,
right,
you know.
And a bodyguard.
Yeah, right.
Australian audiences that you've now been here for a few weeks, compared to the English audiences that you work in front of in this rock area, how do they compare?
Exactly the same. It's funny, you know, audiences, you know, I mean, even places where they don't speak English, you know, I mean, it goes down exactly the same everywhere.
Do you ever feel that maybe you're not really, you know, getting the point across, and maybe it's going like that?
No, I'm sure I am, you know, I mean, it's remarkable, really. I mean, just before I came out here, I was doing a kind of international poetry festival in Holland, you know. And, yeah, they seem to go for it.
They can grasp it.
Yeah.
That's great. Could you do something for us now? Maybe something that you've written recently?
Sure, yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. While I'm in an acrimonious frame of mind because of the dreadful hotels these promoters have been putting me in, I'll do this one. I mean, you won't believe the hotels they're putting me in, you know. I went to see the manager last night. I said, I come to see you about the roof. He says, what about it? I said, I want one. I said, I'll have pneumonia in the morning. He said, you'll have cornflakes like every... Right, this is correct. Well, the title appears on the very last line. Like a nightclub in the morning, you're the bitter end. Like a recently disinfected shithouse, you're clean round the bend. You give me the horrors. Too bad to be true, all of my tomorrows are lousy 'cause of you. You put the shat in shatter, you put the pain in Spain. Your germs are splattered about, your face is just a stain. You're certainly no raver, commonly known as a drag. Do us all a favour, here, wear this polythene bag. You're like a dose of scabies, I've got you under my skin. You make life a fairy tale, grim, a sumo wrestler's armpits, I've nothing on your shoes. Show me any two half-wits and they're twice as smart as you. I think about thrombosis. Every time we touch, I say you have acute halitosis. You say thank you very much. You're very pleasant. I know it's just a fad. Your very presence makes me really mad. I hear your knock up on my door. I've got to get out of town. I hit the lights, I hit the floor, I turn the TV down. People mention murder the moment you arrive thrive. I'd consider killing you if I thought you were alive. You've got this slippery quality. It makes me think of phlegm and a dual personality. I hate both of them. Your bad breath, vamps disease, destruction, tooth decay. Please, 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 please take yourself away like a death at a birthday party. You have to spoil the fun like a sucked and spat out smarty. You're no use to anyone. Like the Black Widow spider in the recess of disgrace. Speaking as an outsider, what do you think of the human race? You went to a progressive psychiatrist. He recommended suicide before scratching your bad name off his list and pointing away outside. Laughter from the playground breaks your bleeding heart. You're heading for a breakdown. Better pull yourself apart. Your dirty name is passed about when something goes amiss. Your attitudes are platitudes. They make me want to piss. What kind of creature bore you? Was it some kind of bat? They can't find a good word for you, but I can. Swat.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We come back and we'll talk with all of our guests right after we have a look at Flash Gordon, part 1. And this is something similar to the single, I think. They're Tree Men of Mars.
Neat.
From outer space we go. John's got a couple of jokes that we might have a quick listen to right after we have a look at part 2 of Flash Gordon, Tree Men of Mars. Be back very shortly. Live.
Yeah, right. That's good.
I was just telling John about the prawn shows that happen in our clubs here in Australia, and you called it?
Pornography.
You got it. I think that'll
Lucky Grills.
The next Lucky will be saying
Grills and spills with Lucky Grills as blue eels.
If I can quickly say that in a couple of weeks' time, like next week is our Christmas show for After Dark, a couple of weeks we start the best ofs, where we take out the best parts of various interviews we've had, and I think we had something like 80 guests over the last year, and they'll be slotted in through new music and new shows of Flash Gordon. So keep watching. It's not like total repeats. You'll get the best and some great new music in Flash as well. Fellas, can I just ask you what the guys are doing with Flaming Hands out of your group? Are they recording or something?
Gary.
Flaming Hands are doing a single, and actually they're not Flaming Hands anymore. They're Tunnels and Frames.
Oh, well.
And they're doing a single, and about half of INXS are sort of working on the single with them, playing and producing.
Yeah. Andrew and Gary mainly.
Yeah. Look forward to that. Good luck in 83.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us on this After Dark. Thank you too, Sammy. Triple J, continue to look after local bands and all that.
J lives.
As long as they live. All right. Now, can you just do that one on hair? We were going to have the brown paper kid, but it's too long.
You want the hairdresser?
Yeah, if you could.
Okay, this geezer, right, it goes to the hairdressers. You know, hairdressers, barbers, they talk to you when they're cutting your hair.
Right.
The barber says, "You going anywhere for your holidays?" He says, "Yeah, I'm going to Italy." He says, "Don't bother. Because me and the wife went last year." He says, "What do you want to go to Italy for anyway?" He says, "I like Italian food." He says, "It's all fish and chip shops." He says, "Well, I'm going for the sunshine." He says, "It pissed down every day last time we were there." He says, "Well, look, I've got a penchant for Romanesque architecture." He says, "You can't see it." He says, "Everywhere you look, it's surrounded by corrugated iron. They're renovating the place or something. Romanesque architecture is out of the question." He says, "Look, the real reason why me and the wife want to go to Italy is we want to see the Pope once before we die." He says, "You'll be lucky." He says, "You stood there in St. Peter's Square with 65 million of the faithful. You're lucky if you see the top of his hat." He says, "Look, I've got the tickets now. I've got to go. I can't get out of it." So he comes back from Italy, goes back to the barbers about a month later. The barber says, "Aren't you the bloke that went to Italy?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "How did it go down?" He said, "I had a great time." He says, "The food was fantastic. Sunshine, wonderful. The Romanesque architecture has to be seen to be believed." He says, "What about the Pope?" He says, "Well, I'll tell you about that. I was stood in St. Peter's Square with 65 million other Catholics. I could just make out the top of his hat when he points his bejewelled staff my way. The crowd parted to a man. He came down the stairs and he walked right up to me. And do you know what he said to me?" He says, "What?" He says, "Who cut your hair?"
The new order. John has been working with us. Thanks for coming on. See you back in England next time we go over. Temptation. It's been nice having you on After Dark. I hope you got that last line. See ya.